In 1519, Hernan Cortez made a decision that would echo through history. Upon landing on the shores of the New World, he faced impossible odds. Outnumbered and surrounded by uncertainty, he gave an audacious order: burn the ships. With no way to retreat, his men had one choice: fight to succeed or die trying. And they did succeed. Cortez's story isn't just about conquest, it's about commitment. It's about making bold decisions, eliminating excuses, and going all in on your vision. Welcome to Burning the Ships, the podcast where we explore what it means to take risks, push boundaries, and refuse to look back. I'm Jason Seward, your host, and each episode we'll share stories, strategies, and insights to help you tackle your challenges head on, overcome obstacles, and make your own history. This is Burning the Ships. Let's get started. Welcome to Burning the Ships Weekly Ramble, and I'm your host, Jason Seward, and today I'm going to talk about a recent book that I read. But before I get into that, we're going to turn it over to my man, JJ, for JJ's Joke of the Week. Take it away, JJ.
Why did the cow go to space? Because it wanted to see the moon.
All right. Another good joke, buddy. Thanks a lot. And now on to the topic of the day. So I'm going to take this back to COVID 2020 when the whole world shut down. And during that shutdown, right, everybody's on their phones more, watching more social media and stuff like that. I was certainly no exception. And the Savannah Bananas started popping up on all of my reels. Every time I'd get on Instagram, or actually, I don't think I had Instagram then, but every time I would get on Facebook, I would have a video or, something new about the Savannah Bananas. And it was entertaining. The reels were funny, and I just didn't know much about it or what they were doing. Obviously, they were in Savannah, but it definitely caught my attention and caught the rest of the world's attention at that point. That's kind of when they blew up. Now, they had been blowing up locally in Savannah for the few years prior to that. But that's when they first kind of got on my radar and most people's radars during the COVID shutdowns, when they couldn't put on ball games because folks couldn't come to the stadium. They started leaning heavily into social media and continuing their train rolling through that. So I followed their journey. For anybody not familiar with the Savannah Bananas, you've been under a rock. But if that is the case for you, look them up. You can find as much information as you want to find about them. But essentially, Jesse Coles, who's the owner of the Bananas, he and his wife, they decided back, I think it goes back to 2016, they decided to buy like a local summer league team in Savannah. For those like in and around like the Richmond area, this is the same league that the Chili Peppers play in, right? I think it's the Coastal Plains League, but it's just a summer like developmental league for college baseball players essentially. And Savannah had one of these teams, or Jesse, bought this team. And at the time, they had zero fan base, right? Nobody was coming to the games. They were struggling to get 100 people in a 4,000-seat stadium. So he buys the team and does, just leans all in. He cashed out everything. They sold out their house. They sold their house. They were sleeping on an air mattress for a number of years. They were basically relying on people volunteering their services to help them build and build a brand and things like that. But he had basically one foundational core principle to everything he was doing. And at the time, he was trying all kinds of stuff, but the core principle was fans first. And by fans, he means customers, people that are going to be watching what they do, following what they do, and essentially paying them money to enjoy whatever value they're providing. So he adopted early on that mentality of fans first. And so he starts gaining traction, COVID hits, and that's when they had already built up, like through several years, they had built up to a point where they were really entertaining fans and they were selling out, there locally in Savannah, filling up that 4,000 seat stadium every game. And again, but it was still just like a summer league for college kids. It wasn't obviously what it is now, and I'll get into that in a minute. So fast forward to about a month ago, now they've blown up and they've developed Banana Ball, and there's a couple, several teams within that. They're traveling the country. The Bananas are playing in major league stadiums, selling out 50,000 plus, crowds 2 nights in a row. They're selling, it's the hottest ticket in not just sports, not just baseball, but all of entertainment. Like it is harder and more expensive to get a ticket, a ticket to a Savannah Bananas game than it is right now to get a ticket to a Morgan Wallen concert or Taylor Swift or something like that. So they are just like in orbit how big they've blown up and how sought after everything they're doing has become. But several weeks ago, that one of the teams, which is the firefighters, so it's kind of like you got the Savannah Bananas. They started off Savannah Bananas, and then when they kind of went out into Banana Ball, which was in 2020, which is a completely different style of baseball. Yes, it's baseball. They're pitching, they're hitting, they're fielding, but it's just got its own set of rules. It's very entertaining, and it's all built and developed around entertaining the fans, right? Because baseball, even if you're a baseball fan, baseball is incredibly boring at times. So his mission was to kind of solve that and bring a better product to fans, more entertaining. So originally when he started that, the Bananas needed a rival, right? So he created the team, which is the Party Animals, and they've blown up to be just as big as the Bananas. And then came the Firefighters, and they've introduced a couple more teams. I think the Tailgaters, I think there's a team called the Rookies. And then I recently read an article or an interview with Jesse talking about how I think going into next year, they're planning on introducing 6 more teams, and they're just going to take this thing across the globe. So a lot of big stuff going on with them. Well, the Party Animals and the Firefighters came to Norfolk, Virginia, and played where the Norfolk Tides play, AAA team here in Hampton Roads. And every game, every stadium they play at, it's a lottery system to get tickets, right? So, I don't know how many fans Harbor Park in Norfolk holds, maybe 15,000. But so they'll put, a lottery out there. It might be 300,000 people enter the lottery to get tickets, and only 15 are going to get 15,000 tickets are going to be given away through the lottery. So we were fortunate enough to hit the lottery. Again, it's not the Savannah Bananas, but same type of idea and stuff like that. So we take our kids and one of JJ's little friends, and we go to the game. I didn't know what to expect. I had seen the reels. I had heard the hype and stuff like that, but it's the first time like I was going to experience this. We get there, and from all the way from waiting in the line to going back to our vehicle after the game was over, it was an experience. For not just for the kids, for me too. Like I was entertained the entire time. Me more so entertained by just being mesmerized at the model, what they have put together. We walked through that gate, they scanned our tickets, and you see all these kids, thousands of kids, constantly being entertained in a very organized fashion. So you walk in and right away you're greeted by all the players. They're sitting there, kids are lining up to get pictures taken and autographs. So if a kid, and we did this, we probably got half the players' autographs, or the kids did, and pictures with them. But that's a big deal. Like you're creating that excitement of getting as many autographs from the players that you've seen on TV and in these reels, and now you're going to see them on the field here in a little bit. So they have that. They have music cranking. They have like a live DJ there spinning records and playing all the the hottest hits and stuff like that. So you got people dancing. You got the teams. Like I think 2 or 3 times they were signing autographs they all had to like stop and run to the stage up there with the DJ and do some kind of performance or dance they were doing. So it just was a lot, sure you've heard the phrase organized chaos. It was very chaotic in the sense it was a lot of people and a lot going on. Like there was no shortage of entertainment. You go to this side of that, if you go to one corner of the staging area where they had all the fans and the vendors and the players and stuff like that, you could be entertained in that corner. Go to the next corner, or something completely different going on. It was just, and nobody had to sit and wait. The lines moved fast. It was just very, very well organized within all the chaos. So go through that. That lasted, I mean, we were there at 3:30. I think that's when the gates opened, and the game didn't start till 7. So for 3.5 hours, my kids were 100% entertained, never bored, like, and never on an iPad, never, on a phone or anything like that. There was always something entertaining them. I've been to hundreds of baseball games in my life. I'm bored 90% of the time at those games, and I'm an adult, right? As a kid, my granddad used to take me to Harbor Park all the time to Tide's game. I'd have fun, but my fun was, occasionally a foul ball might come our way, or I'd get to eat whatever I wanted because he'd buy it for me, or I'd get to, when we came in, I remember they used to have like, and they still do, but like a radar gun set up. So I'd be excited. He'd pay $5 and I'd get like 10 pitches to see how fast I threw. And so that was fun. The actual game of baseball, it wasn't fun, right? I was a kid. I enjoyed baseball, I enjoyed playing it, but sitting there watching that boring game go on, for me, it wasn't great. There was none of that at this game we went to. It was 100% of the time entertaining, so much so, like ninth inning, because they're playing a competitive game within the banana ball rules. So while they're entertaining, they're still trying to win. Like you could see when it got towards the end of the game, the competitive fire in these guys' eyes. Like they were wanting to win. That kind of like the last 2 innings, they slowed down on the trick plays. They were just trying to get outs and trying to win. So it was real baseball, real competitive. Everything is scripted from an entertainment standpoint, but from an actual play on the field and trying to win, it's not scripted. Like whoever they have a unique way of keeping score. It's not your traditional way with innings and runs per inning and stuff like that. But it was entertaining. And again, so much so that literally in the last inning, ninth inning, my son, I looked down at JJ and Emma, who couldn't care less about baseball, but she was entertained, were on the edge of their seats watching this game to the very last pitch. And the very last pitch, that happens, and then they do some little more dances and stuff to end the game, and boom, you're out of there. So where am I going with all this? While I was there, every vendor that was selling apparel and swag, and you could buy the hats and the shirts and all that stuff, and they had a stack of books laid out. I'd never heard of these books, but the book was Jesse Cole, the owner. He wrote a book, and this was prior to the recent blow up that they've had where the Bananas are actually playing. I mean, they played at Fenway, they played at Coors Field, Camden Yards, they played in D.C. at the Nationals Park recently. They're doing a Major League Ballpark tour, playing 2 nights in every stop and selling out every stop, every game they play. Well, prior to that, he wrote a book, and this book was written kind of right at the beginning of when, like, they had already blown up. They were a mega hit, but they were getting ready to take it to the next step of, like, getting into these bigger parks and stuff like that. So he writes this book. There's stacks of them at every vendor. I see it. I'm standing in the line. I'm like, I'm going to buy one of these books. Like, it might be goofy. I don't know what to expect. I hadn't heard of the book, but I'm going to buy it, see what it's about. Buy the book. The very next week, actually the next day, because I think this was a Friday night, we left Saturday morning for our family vacation. I take the book on vacation with me, start reading it. Then the following week, Katie and I did our vacation to the Bahamas. And that's where I dug into this book quite a bit. Like I got into it. I was taking notes. It's impacting me. And I'm going to explain why in a minute. And I read that book. And I want to stop here because this is an important piece of it that I did not make a connection to until my wife mentioned it to me after the fact, because I would not shut up about this book. Katie and I have been to the Bahamas twice, just us two. The first time was between Christmas and New Year's 2018. Y'all may have heard me tell this story before, but on that trip, right before it was the first, David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, had just come out, and I bought it on audio book or Audible. Listened to it the whole way there, listened to it throughout our trip, like when I was walking or exercising, anything like that, and listened to it on the way back home, and completely finished that book, Can't Hurt Me, the Audible version, on that trip to the Bahamas. And I've read some impactful books that I can all put like a finger on how in some ways they changed my life, but that book, without a doubt, is top of the list of really flipping the switch in my head on getting my health and my wellness, my fitness, my mentality, my positivity, which I've always been positive up to that point, but it just switched a gear to another level for me, and I have not looked back. That, go into 2019, I come back, I read that book, and instantly started implementing a exercise plan, a nutrition plan, and stuff like that, and I've been on that path ever since. So that book was very impactful. It was on a trip to the Bahamas. We go on this trip to the Bahamas. This is 7 years later almost, and I read a lot, right? And since that book, I've read a lot of impactful books. The Can't Hurt Me book, but obviously I read that in 18. I've read a bunch since then. Probably 150 books since then. None of them impacted me as much, or my life as much as that one book. Well, now here we go to the Bahamas again. I got a new book, one of many that I read, and I can't stop talking about it. I'm talking to Katie about how much it's impacting, like what I want to do in our business, how much it a lot of his messaging was validating a lot of the thoughts I was having around doing things uniquely and building teams uniquely and things like that. But it put a lot of things in really good focus for me. The book did. So we got back from the Bahamas. I can't stop talking about it. I'm talking to Bill about it. I'm talking to anybody that'll listen about this book, about how impactful it is. And Katie said to me, she said, you realize you were this way 7 years ago after going on a trip to the Bahamas reading the David Goggins book. And I was. And just coincidentally, I talk a lot about the need to kind of get away and reset. I talked about that last week on an episode. But to be able to do that and then have something like an extra layer of icing of something that really impacts. Now, this wasn't something this book didn't necessarily impact my life personally. It did in a lot of ways, but it has impacted, it's going to impact my business exponentially, right? And we're already putting things in place that kind of mimic some of the messaging in the book. But it's just very ironic or crazy that in 7 years' time, Katie and I go to the Bahamas twice, and on both times, the book that I read on that trip was and is the most impactful one that I've read. So the book itself, the message, fans first. So you hear it, you think, okay, what could a baseball team? How could his story in building the Savannah Bananas to what they are now? How can that analogy be made to any other business? Trust me. And I'm not going to go in detail through the book. I'm just going to encourage all of you to go read it. Go pick up the book and read it. It'll blow your mind if you're in any type of service-based business, whether you're an employee and you're in sales or marketing, or you're trying to build something on your own. It'll blow your mind. It will blow your mind. The way he applies how they took a completely unique approach to building something and did not waver from that, still continue to not waver from that approach, and they found success with it. So the fans first, the way that correlates to any other business in any industry is fans can be replaced with customers, right? And he goes very quickly into the book making that correlation. Your customers are your fans. In his case, that is very true because they're a fan of a product that he is putting out, right? They're legitimately fanatical about the things that he's producing and providing, and they're paying money to get entertained by that, right? So they are fans, but they're also customers. They're paying their money to get value in return, right? Well, in our business, we have a lending company, right? There's not like, we're not building a a company and a customer base that are also fans of what we're doing, in the sense that they would pay money to come see us on a stage talking about lending, right? Maybe some people would, but that's not our customer base. Our customer base are uh, house flippers that are using us to help do that project. We're a part of their team to help them buy it, fix it up, stuff like that. But we can take the same mentality that Jesse Coles applies to his baseball team and this whole banana ball concept, and apply it to this business. And what is that? Well, fans first, customers first, right? That's a cliche. The customer's always right. You always take care of the customer. Everybody in business knows that, right? And it's been preached since the beginning of businesses for thousands of years. Well, his overall theme is every single conversation, every decision they make, everything they spend money on through marketing, every person they hire, every new idea they implement, everything they do is centered around, how does this impact our fans positively? And if that question can't be answered, it's scrap. That we're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. So everything that does have any type of influence on a positive experience for the fan, or he says it very often in the book, reduces or eliminates friction for the fans, they're going to lean all in on it and they're going to try things. So the way he's built out his company, which now is a giant corporation, right? They've got hundreds and hundreds of, if not thousands of employees, because they're doing this big orchestrated entertainment business across the globe. Eventually is where they're heading. So he's got a lot of teammates, a lot of people on his team orchestrating all that. But the way they lean into it is everybody's pulling on the same rope. And that rope is, how can we serve our fans the absolute best that we can possibly do it? And they try everything. Everybody in that organization, down to the interns that aren't earning any money or very little money, all the way up to Jesse himself, the owner, and his wife, and their executives that are under them, they have an open forum to brainstorm ideas. So much so that it is part of their requirements to submit ideas, right? And there is no bad idea. So they'll sit down, and I think he talks about in the book, but like on a weekly basis, and they're going over this huge library of ideas, and they're essentially mining for gold. Gold being, oh, let's try this. Let's try this. So some of these things are like things that they can implement from an entertainment standpoint that is going to engage fans more. Not all of them work, but they're trying them. They're constantly trying to improve and add things in. And what that has built is a culture within the organization of everybody caring first and foremost about the fans, the customers. Well, that concept, it doesn't seem that in left field, but it's not applied in most corporations, right? Most corporations are focused on that bottom line. What is that profit number? What are if it's a publicly traded company or with investors or whatever, what is going to best serve our investors and our shareholders and stuff like that? Those conversations lead everything. And then they try to take that mindset and then implement customer service strategies within that. Well, his philosophy is, which is aligns with ours. We're just trying to dial it in and get more clarity around it. But the philosophy is, we don't care. We're going to do what we say we're going to do, take care of our fans, and in return, they will trust us enough to trade money for the value that we're providing. And if that's done enough, then we have a profitable business. Our employees are taken care of. Our profits are met. They don't take on, he has turned down every sponsorship, every investor. He doesn't want to take those on because he doesn't want any of that influencing the business ahead of customers first, fans first. So it has, and again, I could spend, I've gone on for 25 minutes. I could go down a long rabbit hole about all the key concepts here, but I encourage everybody to go pick that up. And I know it sounds silly. You may see the Savannah Bananas and all the dancing and goofy stuff they're doing, and well, how can that possibly apply to my plumbing business? Or how could that possibly apply to my real estate investment company or my sales career? Trust me, there are nuggets in that book, the unlimited nuggets, that you can take and immediately apply to whatever your career or business is. So the point of this ramble is to highlight this book, encourage everybody to go out and grab a copy or get an audio version, and pay attention to what businesses like this are doing, the Savannah Bananas, and there's others out there doing it, but they're taking an unconventional approach. They're leaning in on it, and it is building a customer base / fan base that has taken them to the moon. And because they put the fans first and not profits first. And I just think it's a phenomenal concept. We're going to keep growing our business this way. I've got pages of notes of things that I want to apply in our business and wherever we go moving forward. And I encourage all of y'all to check this book out. So with that, I will wrap up another episode of Burning the Ships Weekly Ramble, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Burning the Ships. I want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, 608B Capital, helping real estate investors secure fast, reliable funding to fuel their boldest moves. If you're ready to take your investing to the next level, visit 608bcapital.com to learn more. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but it also helps us reach more people who are ready to burn the ships and commit fully to their goals. And don't forget to share the episode with someone who needs that extra push to take bold action. I'll leave you with this. Burning the ships isn't just about removing the option to retreat. It's about unlocking the courage to charge forward. No matter the odds, the past is behind you and the future is yours to conquer. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Burning the Ships.